Welcome to the Select Board meeting for November 4th, 2020. We are opening up our public session after being an executive session. Steve, would you read our vision statement, please?
Sure, thank you. The town of Ashland will be a prosperous and fiscally sound community with a full range of housing, business, cultural, education, and recreational opportunities, and a safe, inclusive, and attractive environment for residents and visitors. We will embrace all differences and ensure that all persons have the opportunity to enjoy, contribute, and be part of the Ashland community.
Thank you very much. And Brandy, if you would read our mission statement, please.
Sure. The Ashland Select Board is dedicated to promoting responsible fiscal management, advocating for sustainable development and growth, and providing excellent municipal services, which will enhance the quality of life in our diverse community. The Ashland Select Board is committed to providing clear goals and objectives for town management and creating effective engagement and public participation with residents, state legislators, and other elected officials in order to achieve our mission.
Thank you. Before I open it up to citizens' participation, I just want to read a little statement. I want to thank Tara Ward, Cindy Livingston, and all the staff and volunteers who supported our extended voting process. It's been quite a fall for them, starting with the primary and then leading into this general election. On that note, I'm going to take a little note from Jim Adams and just remind people, Ashland celebrates and embraces the diversity of our community. We support each other and care and come together to make our community stronger and better. And that is what we want to focus on now and as we move forward through this somewhat trying time. So thank you all for being here. I'm now going to open it up for citizens' participation. Mark Tassoni, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, all. Hope you had a good, healthy, and non-scared weekend. I'd like to, I'd like to thank Tara and the town clerk and the voting personnel that did the elections and did a great job. And working all together for the extended time period and all the back and forth they have to do the runarounds on. So I know that this town had no hitch in doing the elections and drop-offs and mail-ins and all that. That's one. Two, through the chairman to the town manager. Is he, oh, there he is, yeah, okay. Yeah. I just went through my email and I want to congratulate you on a very good, personable and emotionally well thought out email. Thanks, your little message. And I felt it coming through as I was reading it, what this town is and how you feel what this town is. So I want to thank you for putting that out and thank the people who are uninhibited by the outside world. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, originally on our agenda at 7:05, we were going to have Candace Avery and Richard Marhar from the Ashland Housing. I am not seeing them, so we're going to leave it open. They did come to town hall, and it just so happened that I was there when they were speaking with Susan. They are looking for members of the Ashland Housing. With the passing of Danny Shea and the loss of another member who has moved out of town, they are looking for membership. They do not even have enough to have a meeting because they don't have a quorum. What this would entail is us appointing somebody and then that person or people running for the seat come the spring election. So if you know anyone who would be willing to spend the time and help run the Ashland Housing, it would be greatly appreciated. And if they do come on, we will let them jump on as well. From there, we have an appointment of Charles Chuck Greene to the Zoning Board of Appeals as an associate member, and I see John Trefethen. So John, if you'd like to take us through this, please. You can just unmute yourself.
success.
There we go.
I wasn't actually planning to say anything. I was here more to just observe as Chuck is put through a very, the typical grilling that you give to potential nominees. But since I've been invited, I will just say, Chuck did participate in our meeting last week where he met the board. He had a list of questions about the ZBA, which frankly I was quite impressed with because sometimes people don't have questions. Obviously, I suspect many of you know him. He's had a long experience in volunteerism here in the town of Ashland. Professionally, he has all the qualifications to be a terrific member of the ZBA. And as I said in my email that I sent to the board after we met, the ZBA met with Chuck, we all heartily endorse him. I think he'd be a terrific addition to the ZBA as an associate member.
Great. Well, thank you for that, John. And now, Chuck, it's your turn for some grilling, as you said. Chuck, just tell us a little bit about yourself for those people who are watching who may not know you and why you'd like to be participating in the ZBA.
Okay, glad to. My wife read the email that John had sent you, which was very, very appreciative of me showing up. And she read it and said, "Who are they talking about?" I served on the Board of Assessors in town here for about a decade and enjoyed it very much. And I'm retired now, like totally retired, and then being told to stay at home forever. I'm bored stiff, so I'm going like, well, I read the list of available volunteer spots and looking for something that would interest me, and also that wouldn't be, 7 nights a week, 5-hour meetings. And so the zoning thing was perfect, and I learned a lot just in the time that we spent on the initial interview about what the Zoning Board of Appeals does, on what basis and how long, and some of the things were enlightening, like the fact that to win a appeal you have to have a unanimous vote. That's the first time I've heard that one. I'm glad those rules aren't for everybody, but it was very interesting. And my other experience, which would tie in, besides being a banker that was in mortgage lending for so long, is that after that I worked a decade as a real estate appraiser on commercial and industrial properties. And a lot of our reports dealt in depth with the various town bylaws that have to do with zonings, and much of evaluations are based on what someone can actually legally do with their property. And sometimes those issues become contentious, and I find that it would fit perfectly for me, and especially starting out as an associate member, I can sit, listen, and learn, and it just fits in my particular life at this moment. That's
Well, that
about it.
sounds great. Does anybody have any questions for Chuck? Steve, go ahead.
Hi, Chuck. Hey, John. Just a quick, I guess, comment and question. I'm assuming, Chuck, that you're either familiar with or soon to be familiar with the 40B process, which is one of the big components of the ZBA sphere.
Very, very familiar with 40B. Actually, about a decade ago, excuse me, I appraised for the developer the 40B project, which is right near me in Sherborne, the Meadow one where the new condos are going up. I did an appraisal, and the town was in litigation with the developer, and there was appraisers on both sides. And it was actually enlightening to do that work. So I have not only utilized the appraisal process, but when I was in banking, that was a time where banks were really asked to reach out and have a more diverse community, and we did quite a bit of 40B lending.
Thank you. And
Great.
I guess my only comment otherwise is, fortunately or unfortunately, Chuck is pretty well known in town, and I think he's an outstanding choice for an associate member on the ZBA.
Thanks, Steve.
Great. Anybody else? Questions or comments?
Thanks. I just want to say thanks for volunteering. I'm glad to hear you got this expertise and the available time to do it. And the ZBA is a pretty low-key board, but when it gets involved, things get very important very quickly. So thanks for stepping up on this. We need good people on the ZBA.
Thanks.
And
Okay.
John, thank you for your years of service on it too, as well, while you're here.
Thanks
If-
very much. I really enjoyed it.
Is there an expiration date for this appointment, Susan? Yes or no?
Yes, they're 1 year associate.
Okay. If I can get a motion to approve Chuck Greene as an associate member of the ZBA expiring in our regular expiration date, Susan, August 31st, 2021.
So moved.
If I can get a second,
Second.
okay. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Shearer,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye. Chuck, just get sworn in and you are all set. Thank you so much for volunteering and
Thank you, Chuck.
stepping up.
Thanks, Chuck.
Greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, folks.
Good luck. Thank you.
Good job. Bye.
Sorry, I'm getting texted by WACA-TV. Moving on, we have some acknowledgement of some recent police department retirements. Joe and Michael, I'm going to let you guys take us through these, please.
Sure. And Joe, if you don't mind, I'll start it off, and I'm sure you can add your own personal touch to some of these as well. We have a number of recent retirements from the Ashland Police Department. And I will start with Lieutenant Dave Bowden. He unfortunately cannot be here, but Lieutenant Bowden retired actually over the summer after, I won't say the exact many years of service, but it was over 40, I think, or almost 40.
Wow.
But he's, Ashland has been his literal home, but then, working for the town of Ashland has been his second home for his entire working life. And so it's been quite a transition. He's had quite a career here, quite a successful career. And Joe, do you want to add anything? I mean, you certainly worked with the man, so you probably have more stories than I do.
I have a lot of stories, some which are not probably family orientated at this point in time. So I will cease from bringing those up, but I've enjoyed working with David over the number of years that I had the opportunity to work with David. David was nicknamed, there was a group of them, there was 3 of them. Dave Bowden, Randy Weld, and former Chief of Police and Lieutenant Scott Romer. They were called the Boys of Summer. And I will discuss the Boys of Summer real briefly. We never saw them during the summertime. They all took their vacation. Any overtime that they worked, all was comp time, and we never saw them over the summer. Plum Island, that's where they would go. All the time they would go to Plum Island. So they were nicknamed the Boys of Summer by Chief Tom Kinder at the time. And that stuck with them for quite some time. And they were a lot of fun. They did their job, but they did what they had to do. But they also partied hardy big time as well. So needless to say, I'm sure that they have fond memories of all those great summers down off of Plum Island and down the Cape as well. But David, I wish you well. I know that your wife will not let you stay at home. You'll probably have to work a lot longer. You'll probably find another job, or she'll find one for you, like my wife did for me. And she will definitely, you will definitely enjoy the time that you have on your hands. I understand you're going to be working some details, made you a special officer, so that's a good thing. So they'll keep you busy. And I'm sure we'll run into one another every now and then. So I wish you the very best. And it was an honor and a privilege working with you for the APD. Things were different back then. Things always change, but they always say things are better in the past, and I have to agree with that.
Well, I think we all agree. I also want to point out Chief Alfano is here, and after we go through our next two retirements as well, I think Chief certainly has some things to say and maybe even some presentations. The next person we're honoring is Officer Billy Foster. Officer Foster retired from the Ashland Police Department after 32 years of service. He did this most recently. Officer Foster has just been one of those solid guys that I don't think he made a lot of noise, and goes laughing. And I say that in a good way. He's just one of those people that just came in and did his job well. Again, did it for over 30 years, and certainly did his job with pride. And I think everybody who worked with him and in the past and in the present would attest to that. And so we certainly congratulate him on his retirement after 32 years of service. And I'm sure Joe has some questions or some stories about Officer Foster too.
Well, one of the things I can say about Billy, you're absolutely right. He was Johnny on the spot in many, many ways. He was Mr. Fix-It. If something broke, you would bring it to Billy and he would fix it. And it would last. There's a lot of duct tape involved, but it would last. And Bill was a crazy. I mean, he was crazy. He loved riding motorcycles, and he also raced motorcycles. And you know, as he was heading up towards that higher age bracket, he was still, you know, somewhat vertical on a motorcycle, but leaning into corners and stuff where he only had maybe 3 or 4 inches to the ground. And I mean, he has a picture of himself, which is just absolutely incredible. And it was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it doesn't go without saying that he crashed a few times and he survived. But and he was like Evel Knievel. He'd get back on that bike again and drive like a maniac on the racetrack. He was a man you could go to.
Not on the streets.
Not on the street. No, I said racetrack. No, I said racetrack. I prefaced that.
I'm going to make sure.
Right. But he was a man you could go to. He was a great backup officer. He knew street survival, very much so. And you know, Ashland was very honored and very lucky to have the likes of Billy working for them for all these years. It was a pleasure and honor, Billy. I did see you on here, and I don't know if you're still there or because he's not like I am. We're not that well when it comes to computer illiterate. So I saw his wife helping him. So that's a good thing. So Donna was there helping him, and I wish Donna the very best on Billy's retirement, because now he's going to be home a lot more. And I don't know how that's going to work out, but you know, I'm sure Donna will have a list of things for him to do, as we call it, the honey-do list. So Billy, it has been an honor and a privilege to work with you, and please enjoy your retirement.
Thank you,
Well
Joe.
deserved. Thank you.
And last but not least, we want to, actually, I think Billy Foster just jumped on now. So he got to miss all the nice words we said about him. Now we can just start roasting him afterwards. But no, I will move on to the next person that we're honoring. Barbara Thorson. Many of you know Barbara from, you know, her community service with the Lions and other organizations. Barbara also has been a crossing guard for 49 years in the town of Ashland. 49 years, and recently retired from that. You know, I can tell you a little bit about Barbara. Just, you know, I've been able to get to know her over the last 7 years. It's hard to find a nicer person, a kinder person who did her job very, very, very well and took it very, very seriously. I think, people don't understand, I think, the stress that the crossing guards go through. Crossing guards um, have a lot of responsibility, and yet they always seem to fly under the radar. I'm just as much at fault for letting them fly under the radar as anybody else, but they really do have a big job, and it can be stressful. But Barb, you'd never know that with Barbara. Again, she did her job very, very well, very competently, very professionally. Again, 49 years of service. That's incredible. So, Joe, again, you have stories, I'm sure.
Well, Barbara was, again, a mainstay with the police department. She was very actively involved in our union at the time. She was the secretary treasurer for, I would say, a good 35 of those 49 years of service to the town. And she kept the book straight and honest. And like you said, she took her job seriously out in the street. And she took her job seriously as a secretary treasurer for the union secretary and treasurer's position. All I can say is that she would greet every kid with a smile and a good morning. I would see her pass her by, and she was always ready to do what she needed to do to keep the kids safe getting to school. And it's not the same not seeing her at the corner of Front Street and Concord Street anymore. Even though I can see her visually there in my memory, she's not there anymore. But I wish her the very best in her retirement, well deserved, and enjoy everything that you have. You earned it, and we definitely miss you, kiddo. So thank you for your service. And Billy, I know you're listening. I don't know if you're asleep or what. Okay, you're moving. Okay, I wasn't sure.
One of the interesting things about COVID is that we've had to adapt these recognition ceremonies to an online environment. Typically, we would have the people that we were honoring into the select board room, and we would have a number of people there, their friends and family and members of the department. Unfortunately, we can't do that in this day and age right now. But we do have our chief here, Chief Alfano. Chief, I know you're not at a loss for words. And I know, just like I'm not either. So please take it away.
Well, I don't know. I'm playing second string to Joe tonight, so it's going to be difficult.
Sorry, Chief.
One of the nice things about a department our size and a community our size is people aren't just numbers. You actually know a real person, and as both of you have done, you have stories. You see them, you speak with them. That's one of the wonderful things about Ashland is everyone is a real person, and everyone is valued, and everyone is remembered. These three people are leaving very large holes in our department by their retirements. I'll start with Bill Foster. I was fortunate to know Bill actually before. I'd worked with him before I came to the Ashland Police Department. And the term MacGyver keeps coming to mind. Bill could fix anything, build anything. As Joe said, duct tape was a real key ingredient, duct tape and a ball peen hammer. But Billy never needed a master key ring. If he needed to get into any place in the station, he would get in. I don't know how, paperclip, I don't know, but he never needed keys. Bill was a lead firearms instructor with the department for many, many years. Fantastic firearms instructor. I can't tell you how many things I learned myself from Bill. And he's also was a key member of our motorcycle unit, which is a very active unit, as you all know. I think Bill's probably broken every bone in his body on motorcycles, but he keeps coming back. So he's really going to be missed. He's a classic. They definitely broke the mold with Bill. Dave Bowden. Again, I had the good fortune of working when I was in the Framingham Police Department for 20 years. I worked with Dave Bowden for many years on the midnight shift together, with them coming to back us up in Framingham and Framingham Police going to back them up in Ashland. At a lot of bars and clubs that don't exist anymore. Joel will remember them. Dave he's just the sage of the department. He's the stalwart. I can't tell you how many times in my tenure here I've gone to him and asked his opinion, asked his advice, and rock steady. He's just a wonderful person. There's not an evil bone in the guy's body. Fortunately, he's staying with us as a reserve police officer, so you will see him out there on details, and he's been helping us out with projects, and his knowledge base is invaluable, especially when it comes to the marathon. Dave's done it all. He was a crackerjack detective, just somebody whose advice I always honor, and I'm always very thankful to have it. And I'll finish with Barbara. What can I say? 49 years. She's just been an absolute figurehead for the town of Ashland. As a matter of fact, Dave Bowden told me that Barbara used to cross him when he was in grade school. So that shows you that, she's definitely been a figurehead in Ashland. It's a good thing she didn't run for the select board, because she'd probably sweep it. She really, she was just a figurehead. I think if we had to tally up everybody that had crossed paths in the town of Ashland with Barbara through the years, it would be in the many thousands, many thousands. So we wish them all well. We had a small ceremony for Bill at the station when he left a couple weeks ago. We do have a plaque, as Mike Herbert said. I'm not used to this Zoom either. I'm trying to figure out how to fit this plaque through the screen. But this is a plaque that we had made up. I don't know how well you can see it, for Barbara, and we're going to present that to her personally.
Very nice.
This is her actual badge that she wore. She turned it in to me, and I said, "No, you should keep that." And she's right on the money. She said, "Nope." Well, she's getting it back on the plaque and the crossing guard patch for her. And we also had a plaque made up for Lieutenant Dave Bowden, which we'll present in person to him in a COVID-friendly way. This is the plaque for Lieutenant Dave Bowden, and it has some verbiage underneath it. Basically, it's everything that everybody has said. So again, I thank the board for their recognition of these fine staff members. That, as I said, they really leave a big void in the department, and whoever fills their shoes really does have big shoes to fill.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Chief. Any select board members would like to add to that? Steve?
I
And
would
then
just,
Rob?
first of all, I'd like to thank certainly all of the retirees, and extend best wishes for their retirements, and thank them for their service over many dedicated years. I would also like to recommend that we do have a supply of BS coins, and I would like to see us hand as a commemoration. What are you laughing at, Michael?
No, it's just your referral to them.
I was just thinking the same thing,
You
Steve.
mean
that we need
SB coins?
We need to get some of our select board coins to these 3 retirees.
They do say Board of Selectmen, so I affectionately call it the BS coin, but they're technically select board coins. So I would ask that all 3 of our retirees receive a coin, please.
It's a great idea. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Rob?
Oh yeah, I just wanted, and I didn't have the pleasure. I don't know Officer Foster, but I certainly wish him the best on his retirement and congratulate him. I did know of course, Lieutenant Bowden. He was, as you said, Chief, a rock steady presence in this town. I think the definition of a community oriented police officer, and he took us. He was a steady presence through some pretty tumultuous years. So certainly appreciate his service, and I'm frankly jealous of his retirement. So, but I wish you the best, Dave. And of course, Barbara Thorson, and a number of us worked with her on the Lions. And I actually have and of course her late husband Jens was a great guy, and they've been the backbone of the Lions for probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, I would say. And so I did have the pleasure of working with her on a traffic detail on one of the triathlons. We were at a relatively dangerous intersection in the Hopkinton. If you remember when we used to do that, and people would just, the bikes and the runners, the bicyclists would come and take that right, and sometimes traffic would come ongoing. And I didn't realize at the time I was doing volunteer work with a traffic expert, but she told me exactly what to do, and she told a lot of the motor vehicles coming and going exactly what to do as well, with a very strong presence, if you know her. So very impressive. So certainly thank you, Barbara, for your many years of both volunteer and professional work here in the community. So thank you, and thank you all the retirees.
Great. Brandy, did you want to add anything?
I don't have any stories to tell, but I will add my congratulations on the retirement of these three fantastic members of the Ashland Police Department. I think that it goes to show what the many years of service is. It's the commitment to the town and the community, and that's something that we absolutely honor, and thank you for your many years of service. And I do wish that we were in a non-COVID environment, that we could congratulate people in person, but I think that especially the stories that have been shared and everything, I want to extend my congratulations and just wish you all the best in retirement, and thank you again for your service.
Great. Thank you, Brandy. Well, I want to add my thank you. Bill, I did not know you as well, but I do remember seeing you around, and certainly as a motorcycle officer, I think, you did a great job, and thank you for your service. Dave Bowden, I got to know a little bit better. But as I've always found in this community, you're talking to one person and you don't realize they're then related to someone else that you're working with. And I think that's what's so nice here in Ashland, the families and the community, that people are related and working together and supporting each other. I got to know Barbara through the Lions, but also through working on the Safe Routes to School program, going out front of the library and helping walk some kids to school. And as you said, Rob, you'd learn from Barbara because she knew her job. She took it seriously, and she really protected those kids, making sure that they were safe walking to and from school and helping with traffic. So Chief, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories and support. And thanks for these three officers of our police department. Joe, I always love your stories. They just they just give life to people that you may only know a little bit, but because of your work with them, you really bring their stories to life. And I think as a community to hear that is such a nice thing to do. So thank you for that. Congratulations, Bill. Congratulations, Dave. Congratulations, Barbara. Enjoy your retirement. But from hearing from Joe, and I know Steve, sometimes you'll find something to keep yourself busy. There's always something to jump into, certainly here in Ashland. So thank you again. And Bill, thanks for being on the call. We appreciate it. Great. Okay.
Thanks,
Okay.
Billy. My best to Donna.
These are the fun things, getting to congratulate and thank people. I always love this part of our select board, what we need to do and what our job is. So thank you for that. Before we move on, I was remiss. I did not see someone's hand when I opened it up for citizens participation. Diane Ring has been patiently waiting. So if everyone's okay with that, I'm going to let Diane jump in with her citizens participation, and then we will move on to our consent agenda. Unmute yourself, Diane. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you very much, Yolanda. And I know
Welcome.
there's a really full agenda. I'm going to be really quick. I am blown away by the equivalent of a standing ovation that just happened. I mean, you did everything you could without actually being there. And I want to say that 117 years of service between three people is saying a lot about the community. Another thing that says a lot about the community, I want to thank you, Yolanda, for your comments about your inspiring comments about being unified, and Michael, for your blog in that regard. I mean, that's keeping it real and what's important. That's another testament to our community. I'm a little late to the game to congratulate everyone involved in the 2 Voice of the People National Awards. That's pretty huge, and I just wanted to express my Congratulations and gratitude to everybody involved. Finally, I want to say thank you for the recent filing to the Siting Board in response to Eversource's filing. I have no idea what it really means, and I hope that if time permits and it's possible that we can get an update on that. Thank you.
You're welcome, Diane. We did add an Eversource update to our agenda when we get into old and new business, so very shortly.
Thank you.
Great, you're welcome. Okay, next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. And I'm going to ask that we remove item E because we do not need to appoint Jen Ball to the Mendez Building Committee. So I'm just going to remove item E. So the rest of
Disappointed.
what?
She's so disappointed.
Oh yeah, I can tell. Yeah, because she needs to be on another committee, Michael.
Right. Oh, sorry.
So consent agenda, approve the regular session minutes from October 21st, 2020. Request to waive the 15-day waiting period for the town manager's appointment of Meredith Madison as the part-time 16 hours per week food pantry coordinator. Notification of the town manager's appointment of Aaron Early as a part-time library assistant, and appoint Ron Mortensen on the Public Safety Building Committee as ex officio. If I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
If I can get a second.
Second.
Okay, Kinsman,
Aye.
Vignani,
Aye.
Mitchell, Shear,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye. Great, so that passes 5-0. Thank you. Welcome to our two new positions, and thank you, Ron, for stepping up to be part of the Public Safety Building Committee. Next up, old and new business and Eversource update. Michael, I'm going to ask you to take this, please.
Absolutely. So just to bring everybody up to speed, I think we've discussed the land court decision. I did have a good conversation with Attorney Winter earlier this week, basically getting his take on some of the information that has come forward since that decision, and that's kind of been revealed through some of these filings. It's interesting that he's been able to calculate a cost associated with the land court decision. So it looks like the way Eversource wants to address that land court decision and how it has altered their path for their project is going to cost them an extra $6 million. So we can say that the land court judgment was a $6 million judgment, if we want to look at it from a quantitative standpoint. Not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying I thought it was pretty interesting. It must be the way lawyers tend to do things, I guess. Second is just to refresh everybody. After that land court decision, Donna Sharkey, who is the hearing officer for our case at the Energy Facilities Siting Board, demanded that the hearing reopen in regards to certain aspects of Eversource's filings with the EFSB. Specifically, how is this going to affect their cost? How is it going to affect the way that they move forward? Eversource was required to put a response forward first, which they did. I felt, hopefully, you've had a chance to look at the docket and see it yourself. It was very generic. What I will say, what we're kind of used to seeing from Eversource, which is, don't worry about it. We got this handled. Just go ahead and issue the permit. In response to that, we filed a number of questions, which Attorney Winter did very, he had to turn it around fairly quickly. And so he has filed that. Namely, Eversource's strategy of going to property owners who have this easement on their property and essentially compensating them. What is that? How does that exactly work? It looks like from Eversource's filings, they're looking at compensating landowners close to zero for these easement rights. Another thing that Brian, or Attorney Winter, I should say, is really pressing them for is, in response to this land court decision, have they done any kind of design or additional design or engineering with respect to the noticed alternative route? And that was a big problem that we had in the initial filing, is that they're required to provide a noticed alternative in addition to their preferred route. And they really had not done any kind of due diligence related to that notice alternative. So our contention was, well, how much of a realistic alternative was it? Start moving into, the construction plans. What would the removal of the pipe look like from a construction standpoint? What kind of wetlands impacts would that have? And I think there are a number of more detailed asks within the filing. So Eversource is required to give us a response in 2 weeks, or I should say they should be giving the hearing officer a response in 2 weeks, of which we will be copied on, and we will see what happens then. It could be, I'll just call it remanded back to trial, or where we'll have an opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses and put on the stand our own witnesses again, which would be pretty unique. And it's really going to be up to the hearing officers and the EFSB's decision as to what to do moving forward. Any questions?
Any questions for Michael? I'm going to
Uh,
ask the board first.
Sure.
Bob?
Just what are we, what's our thinking about their proposal to landowners? And the town is a landowner, and their proposal, as I understand it, is that they're giving people two options. One is they can insist on having the old pipe removed, or they can, I guess, modify their right of way to allow them to leave the pipe in the ground. Is there any, did Brian ask any questions about that process specifically, or do we have any thoughts that we'd care to state publicly about that general approach? Or and did they lay out a schedule for contacting landowners and asking them that question, or does that need to be approved first by the EFSB as part of the permit?
Rob, I don't recall them actually putting forward a schedule. I could be wrong about that. Brian's main comment and main concern was just the apparent lack of effort, at least perceived lack of effort, that Eversource had made in terms of developing a realistic proposal to these landowners, including the town of Ashland. And I will tell you that we have not received any kind of formal request to consider, any kind of proposal from them in terms of amending the right-of-way language or the easement. So that's what I know so far.
Okay, thanks. That's
Okay. Any other board members' questions?
I'm sorry, I just did have a procedural question though. So in terms of the schedule, we didn't actually, in terms of reviewing all this on our own response, Michael, how do you see that schedule working in terms of the next phase of this? So Brian's made some preliminary, they're going to, I guess, respond. I guess I'm just want to make sure we have a process in place for reviewing this as a board, and putting together, and reviewing our options, I guess. So how do you see that process working?
So when their response comes in, we'll collectively take a look at it, and Brian will be a part of that with us. And at that point, we could ask the siting board for different decisions, or they should take into account certain things. Ultimately, it will be the hearing officer's decision, but again, we have the opportunity to say, we think that this requires and justifies, in person or over Zoom testimony and the ability to examine and cross-examine witnesses and put up our own evidence. Interestingly enough, this could also potentially impact some of the Conservation Commission discussions as well. So, and that's something I'm not necessarily sure we want to talk about publicly at this point in time, but it is something that we will need to talk about with Brian pending Eversource's response, when we get Eversource's response.
And just for the public, and actually to refresh my memory, where are we formally and publicly with the Concom process?
In Superior Court, and then DEP, we've essentially preserved our right to appeal. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Diane, I'm gonna let you ask your questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael, for the update and for all that work. And I totally don't want to put anyone on the spot if this is something that you can't respond to. Curious to know where the motion to dismiss in Superior Court, I think it was, where that stands, if you can comment. Thank you very much.
I don't feel comfortable commenting on that right now, Diane. What I just referred to with Rob in terms of how Eversource responds to this EFSB appeal could potentially impact how we address that motion to dismiss.
Okay.
They can, depending on what Eversource says, it could have a direct bearing in either strengthening or weakening our case in the motion to dismiss process.
Understand. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mark?
Thank you, and Dr. Sony. And I would like to go through the chairman to the town manager. Don't stop the direction you're in now. With me and you, and I went through conservation, I went through Hockington with all that paperwork I sent in, the right of intent, the right of way things and all that stuff. And to finally have it come to fruition, maybe that Eversource might have to talk about reimbursing citizens for their properties. Even if they say no, at least it's upfront. And that's an idea that those citizens, especially in Pennock and through the woods in there, that they gotta know what's going on. And for the sitting board, they should be more forthright to you, and have, if it can, at any time, in any way, to send out like a little blurb of this project on your email blast, what is the progress of, if there is any at the time. But I know that in court, there's a pending case. So you can't put out everything in public because it's pending, because you don't want to jeopardize. It's like being in an executive session, but this is a very big court case with you and Eversource. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Michael, thanks for that update. I'm sure we'll be hearing more, and as this moves forward, yep, I see you, Chuck and Lynn. Hold on. And I appreciate those of you that are here for the meeting, but as Michael said, we want to make sure that as we say things, we're not doing anything that could affect our stance and our ability to, do what we need to from a legal perspective. Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure Michael will take care of that. Thank you, Yolanda. The thing that sort of, I did read the town's response, and I was quite impressed. I didn't understand, and I tried to read the Eversource document. I didn't understand, are we stuck with either we agree to it to let them put one in and leave the pipeline there, or have it dug up? Do we not have a choice here somehow beyond the two?
Well, Chuck, you bring up a good point. Yeah, yes, we do have a choice. The way Eversource phrases things, which it's almost, it's interesting. They phrase it in a way that, oh yeah, it's going to happen. And almost like the decision has already been made. It's great from like a goal setting vision type of standpoint, I guess. You want to think about, you want to write them out, in the present tense and things like that. But I'm not necessarily sure it translates well into court briefs. So to answer your question, that might be their approach. It doesn't necessarily mean we have to agree to it, or any landowner has to agree to it.
Good. Thank you.
Great. There's nothing else on the Eversource. I do need to go back. I was so excited not to have to appoint Jen on your consent agenda that I forgot to appoint Ron and remove. So if I can get a motion to appoint Ron Mortensen to the Mendez Building Committee and remove Barbara Durand and Joe Richardson, and we're appointing Ron Mortensen as a voting member.
So moved.
If I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Shearer,
Aye.
and Greaves. Aye. There, we took care of that. Paul Kendall's keeping me on my toes.
He's good at that.
Okay, now we can continue. Next item on our agenda, waive the waiting period for acquisition of property located off of South Street, the Charles Nickerson project ID number 20D02. This was brought to us through the Senator Spilka's office. This is for the property that is, no, wrong thing.
Island and Spring Street, right?
Yeah. Michael, if you
Or
could
South
take,
Street, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
if you could take us through this, Michael.
I will do my best. So as you noted, the Department of Agricultural Resources is looking at acquiring a parcel of land that is predominantly in Holliston, but is also part of, a small bit is part of Ashland,
Okay.
off of Springs and South Street, excuse me. This is affectionately known as the Charlie Nickerson property. Charlie lived there for many, many years. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to meet Charlie. He's an interesting character, well into his 90s. You would never know it, though. He's a workhorse. This is also the location where Upswing Farm used to have their farm stand as well. And so Charlie, when he was going to divest of his property, there was a movement to make sure that it was protected. This is part of that process. As part of the process, there's a 120-day notification period for, to put it out that this is what the Department of Agricultural Resources is looking at doing. They're asking us to agree to reduce that 120-day notification period to 60 days. I've talked with the Senator's office. They're on board with doing this. I believe this is a very reasonable request. And so I would suggest you vote to reduce it from 120 days to 60 days.
Anything we can do to help save land as agricultural land, I think, is a positive.
Michael, in terms of looking at that parcel, do you know which part is actually in Ashland? Is it the part by South Street, or I'm trying to remember or just a little bit beyond, I guess, off of Highland?
It is right off of South Street. It is. And like if you're coming out South Street and you look to the right, there's Holliston and the new, I think, Summit Point. I think that's the development there.
Right.
Part of that property, part of Charlie's property, abuts Chestnut Street in Ashland.
So the result of this easement will be to ensure that it stays in agricultural use. So it's a great thing, and it's too bad it's not more. It's very little of it is in Ashland, but still a good thing. So I'd certainly support this.
Okay. If I can get a motion to waive the waiting period for the acquisition of the property located off of South Street, the Charles Nickerson property as requested.
So moved.
I can get a second.
Second.
Okay, Kinsman,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
Shearer,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye. And that also passes 5-0. Thank you. And I'm sure you'll let the senator's office know. Next item on our agenda to discuss election and voter turnout. I do have to say I was very impressed when I went to look at the numbers. I don't know at what time on last night, how they had it split out, the voting from during the day versus the early voting. Very nice job in that presentation. That was amazing to see. So, but if you can give final numbers, Michael, I didn't calculate what we actually hit.
Sure. So we didn't break our 90% goal.
Oh,
voter-
no?
No, we didn't. We got close. But, you know, Yolanda, I'll just start off first. I really appreciate you taking a moment just to thank Tara and Cindy and the rest of the volunteers for doing this. This has just been an incredible amount of yeoman's work in getting us to this place and having things run smoothly. Again, I'm fond of saying early voting and mail-in voting is certainly a noble gesture. We would appreciate it if resources followed those noble gestures as well. I know resources are scarce.
And scared too, yeah.
Well, I was about to say that leads to people being scared. But they just did a remarkable job of setting up a system and finding volunteers who made this transition very, very smooth. Overall, we had 10,499 people vote.
How many people?
10,499.
That's good.
Is that the most we've ever had, do you know, or?
I believe it is the most we've ever had. We actually increased voter registration as well. So if we had not increased voter registration, you might say we might not have hit that high a number, but let's just say all things stayed the same and we had that number, we would have hit the 90% range. I will say it looked like, I haven't done a complete in-depth analysis on it, but it looked like the early voting, what they noted as advanced deposited voting, it equaled about 75% of the total votes in general. I think we were thinking it was going to be like around 65 to 68. Again, I'm kind of rounding up, but this, you know, it looks to be about 3/4. And you know, it's nice to be in a state and work in a town where we were able to get those votes counted quickly.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
not go well into the night. I'd hate to be some of those states right now, but congratulations to everybody who, number one, who voted, who took the time to vote, and was heard, but then also for the team here who just made things absolutely smooth.
That's the thing that's so, I guess there are states that weren't even allowed to count their mail-in or early voting until yesterday. I'm like, how do you, you know, and you know, I don't know if any of you had the opportunity. I was at the town clerk's office probably about a week ago, and Tara very kindly showed me all the mail-in ballots that they had gotten and their process. And
Wow.
It was just amazing to see them. And we got it done. And, you know, granted, it's not a million, and there are locales that, you know, had 1 million come in, but still, we are very fortunate to have gotten it done so well and so smoothly.
Yeah, Yolanda, you bring up a good point, and I hear this sometimes, like I hear this in the city of Framingham when some people bring up Ashland's success, and oh, you know, it's like a small town. It doesn't have to worry about the same type of issues as like a Framingham.
Sure we do.
Framingham has different issues, but they have a lot more resources as
Right.
well.
Right.
And the same thing goes with voting. You know, there are places that do have 1 million, you know, 1 million people coming into their poll places. But
right.
I would be willing to bet that everybody working those polls are paid. And there's probably a lot more of them as well.
Yep.
I think
So
it's a good point about, raising, the efficiency.
Steve, I have trouble hearing you.
Yeah, your volume's a little low, Steve. There you go.
So can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so, I think it's a good point to raise relative to, being efficient with counting of voting. And I agree with you, Yolanda. And I understand that it's part of their state laws as to, when they start to count ballots in other states. But, like we're reevaluating so many things with COVID-19, I think this election raises, I think, the opportunity to, look at the way we vote nationwide and how to make it much more efficient and just a better process. But it goes to what Michael's talking about, is having resources applied to the voting process.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
can I make some observations as well? When we first started talking about mail-in voting on a wide scale back before the primary, I was, frankly concerned about the logistics and the expense and, the fact that we did the primary all right, but then we have the general coming up, and what's that going to be like? But so very happy to hear that, and very appreciative of the fact that Tara and Cindy and Michael and Jen and the rest of the staff made this work. It's a major, it's an important test of democracy if we can run elections properly that people have confidence in, and that work without having to wait in line or worry that your ballot got lost somewhere. And, I refer to the staff there as the guardians of democracy, which, I really think they are, because if we can't, have confidence in our voting, everything else starts to fall apart. And so very happy that we're a great example of it, and things have worked out so well. And we just have to make sure we continue to support and protect this process.
Yep.
So thanks to everybody involved in that.
Brandy, do you want to add
I
anything?
think it was amazing. Sorry. I think it's amazing that they sent out over 6,100 mail-in ballots, that the sheer number of that, and to be able to track all that. And I don't know how many of the mail-in ballots were returned versus people deciding to come in person and vote. But I did early voting, and it was the easiest thing ever. So, congratulations to Tara and Cindy. I hope they're having a little bit of downtime, because I think they deserve it after all of that for the last few months. So, but it's a huge process, and they did an amazing job.
Great. Joe?
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate what everybody has said already. Great job for Tara and her staff, and the volunteers that came out and worked the polls. I met Yolanda yesterday as I was exiting the polls, and the first thing she said, "Why did you vote today?" And well, I'm a traditionalist. I believe in just following what I used to do. It seems to work for me. It may not work for everybody, but it worked for me. I've been voting since I was 18. And I'll never forget what my dad told me. Too many men and women sacrifice their lives for us to have this ability to speak our piece and vote for the leaders, our future leaders, our current leaders. And, he's right on. I mean, he was one of those people from the great generation, and, they sacrificed, they lived through, depressions, the whole 9 yards. So they know what it's all about. So you listen to those elders who have lived it, and just an incredible job. And I really appreciate it. You walk by the clerk's office, and they're like worker ants. That they know what they're doing, and they're busy. They don't bother anybody else. They do what they have to do, and it gets done without an issue, without raising voices, without getting upset or whatever. they're true professionals at what they do. And I just want to thank Tara and her staff. They did a great job, and her support staff as of yesterday. Everyone did a wonderful job. I wish the whole nation could be like that, but unfortunately it's not. I wish it could be, but it isn't.
Yep. Great. Yeah, it's funny as we're sitting here, I think about, I mean, I'm sure we all know our first presidential election. Mine was in 1980. You know, and I go, wow. So I've been voting for 40 years. I'm like, wow, that's doesn't seem right, but yeah. No, it had to be 82. But yeah, 82. But anyway, it's been a while.
By the way, Joe, you're considered an elder these days.
I know, an elder. I know. Isn't that horrible? I don't feel like
when
an
do you
elder.
become an elder? You know, when is that?
For me, it's another 10, 15 years, I think. I don't
Hey,
know.
listen, Rob and I, our
Well, that's
first
why I'm
election
asking.
was-
When do you become an elder? You know, is it because you're wise in so many ways, or is it how old you are? So,
I think
anyway.
it's when they say, "Hey, old man, get out of my way."
Well, good. And then I'll never be an elder because I'll never be an old man.
That's right. I don't feel it. I really don't feel it.
Question, just a question on the results. Are they posted on the town website or where?
Yes.
Okay, they
The
are.
unofficial, yeah.
Unofficial results.
Yeah, they've been up since last night.
I took a quick look and I didn't immediately see it, so I don't know if we should
Yep.
put a banner up there or whatever. But
Well,
It was
John
pretty
King-
easy to find.
Yeah. John King went to his magic wall on CNN, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of like Rhode Island, you know?
Hey, Rob, all I can say is this, is that if you voted the same year I voted, our first election was Herbert Humphreys versus Nixon.
I don't think I voted in that. I was very active in the Mondale versus, God, who was it? Must have been Reagan. Was it Reagan?
Yeah, Mondale Reagan.
Yeah.
I was,
Yes, that
so
was
I definitely voted
82?
in that one.
All I can
Was that
say is that was
82?
my first loss.
84.
84. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yep.
That worked
That
out.
was my first loss. Other than that, I've been dead on, so, which is pretty,
Uh-oh.
it's a pretty good record. Better than Bill Belichick.
Okay.
Ain't too difficult these days.
Yeah.
If there is nothing else in regards to election or voter turnout, just, you know, another thank you to Tara and Cindy and everyone in their office. They did an amazing job, and all the support staff, and it was great seeing the kids volunteering and wiping down the corrals yesterday, and it was just very cool to see. So nice. Next up, we are going to discuss special town meetings, and we are going to review the warrant articles. Michael sent those out later today. This is our first pass, and then we'll be actually voting on the warrant at our next meeting in November. So Mike or Jen, whoever wants to take us, let's go through the warrant articles, and then we'll discuss the two dates.
Wait, do you want to, okay, so you want to do the articles for the 8th first and then
Yes.
the 2 dates?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
All right. One second. Jen, if you want to jump in here, obviously. Sure.
Sure. So we are in the process of putting together the warrant for the December 8th, which will look a lot similar to our normal special fall town election. We're still trying to prioritize articles and sort of limit it to things that are really time sensitive. We did sort of deferred a couple of articles from May in hopes that we were going to be in a better place as we came into the fall with COVID-19. And obviously that
I'm sharing my screen so people can see the potential articles.
Okay. Yeah, so some of these are sort of I'm working on, titles to make sure that they're explaining the article. But we would start with free cash, as we often do with our special town meeting. We are still waiting for our number to be certified. So when you read the actual article language, it's basically left blank with a bunch of X's for me to fill in once we have that information. We also every fall discuss property tax exemption for seniors who are eligible. This year we have been we've been asked by our veterans agent to look at the Brave Act, and there's two options for the Brave Act. I've added both here for some discussion. One is to exempt property tax for a family who has lost a member of the military on duty, and so a Gold Star family would basically be exempt from property tax. I believe we do actually have would have an eligible family in town for that. The second component of the Brave Act allows a similar program to the senior tax work-off, but it would be applied to veterans. And if somebody was disabled, it could be extended to their spouse to do a certain number of hours to work off up to, I believe it's $1,500 of their taxes. Michael, do you want me to keep going, or?
Go ahead.
Okay, so we have, I think we've discussed previously during our priority projects, the Valentine Committee has been working really hard to find a way to renovate the property that we purchased a few years back. One of the things we are looking at doing right now is we have an open RFP for the possible sell or lease for adaptive reuse. And so that really means having a private partner that would come in and either buy it or enter into a long-term lease agreement with us to renovate both the barn and the home and reuse that through the town. So that would require a zoning change. And so was right now it's in residential A, which is essentially, just really a single residence. And so, and for municipal use. And so the Valentine Overlay District, the planning board's looking at now, it would allow us to use it for commercial use for things such as non-exempt educational opportunities, potentially a working farm or farm education. It could be an art center or potentially a bed and breakfast, a function space. And so it's really geared to those types of uses, and it would be an overlay only related to that specific parcel. So sometimes the overlays are a little bit broader, and this is really just for that parcel or the three parcels that make up what we call the Valentine property. So the planning board's working through that, and they have to have a hearing, obviously, before town meeting, and there may be some small tweaks to that. We're working with Lisa to make sure all of the language it meets the legal requirements. So Emma and Peter have been working with Attorney Mead on that, and so we can, I may need to update that a bit for the next draft. And then following that, we would actually need the authorization to either sell or enter into a long-term lease for that property. And again, so with that, we will have deed restrictions. So they will be a historical preservation to make sure that we preserve the home and the barn. So, the town worked really hard to preserve that property a few years back. And we want to make sure that we don't, if we sell it to lease it for reuse, that we actually maintain the character, because that was really important to the town when we purchased it, but also it was one of the things that was most important to the Valentine Committee and others when we talked to folks on what we could possibly use that property for. And then because we use CPC funds, we used open space fund money, there will actually also be a conservation restriction on a portion of that property that will require public access for the public. And so if you're looking at the parcel, there's actually a whole side of, I think it's lot 3, and that will all be maintained for open space and preserved. And these are deed restrictions, so they'll run with the property. So it won't be necessarily just tied to this initial sale, but it's a way to make sure that we preserve this property forever. Michael, do you have anything else to add on that?
No, I think you covered it. I just want to make sure that the board is clear on.
I just had one question on that. So you said lot 3, is that the section as you're looking at the house to the left of the house and 14 Carrot? Is that considered lot 3, or is it toward the middle school lot 3?
I believe it's towards the middle school. I'm trying to
Oh,
get
so
my-
the bigger parcel?
yes.
Okay,
The one with the wetlands on it.
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Okay. So, you know, everybody understands that when we're talking about a sale, or a lease of the property, that might happen. That might be the way that we get these things and these ideas that the town has talked about having at this property, have them come into fruition. And there's some understandable concern with, okay, well, what happens to the subsequent owner? Let's just say we don't do a lease. Let's just say we do end up selling the property to somebody who is going to help us realize our vision for that property. But what if that person says 5 years from now, oh, you know what, this doesn't work. I want to sell it. I want to do a 40B development. I want to do something else. We're putting conditions in place that will run with the land and not necessarily run with the owner. So regardless of who the owner is, current and future owners will be required to follow these restrictions. Deed restrictions, CPA restrictions, historical restrictions. So I just want to make sure, I know there's concern, I think, if not amongst the board, I think some people in the community, you know, why would we be going down this path? Well, first of all, it's really the only way that we can accomplish the things that we want to accomplish for this property. And second, people want to make sure, you know, that we've invested $3.5 million into this. Let's make sure we get what we want, not just for the foreseeable future, but for long term as well. And so we're putting those in place. Well, I hope that resonates with people.
Madam Chair,
go ahead, Joe.
Michael, I think I have an understanding of that, but I guess my concern would be, like you just used as an example, say a potential owner of the property buys the property back at the 3.5 million that we bought it for. Okay, so it's a wash for the town. Those deed restrictions will be there in perpetuity?
Correct.
Okay, can he fight that? Could a potential future owner fight that because he paid back what the town purchased it for?
No, because
Joe, I liken it to the affordable housing restrictions on the townhomes at Avenue of the Americas.
Okay.
Right?
Got
You put the deed restriction on that it needs to stay affordable.
Okay.
We will put deed restrictions on this property, you know, if that's the way to go, that would make sure that it stays with what we approve that they do.
Okay. I was just kind of curious whether there was an outside mechanism that could be used to, you know, eliminate that or remove those that were in perpetuity. I just wanted to make sure that there isn't, that's all.
Exactly. I mean, if the owner agrees to it, so that's the only way the property gets transferred.
Okay.
The owner agrees to it. Joe, you do bring up a point, and I just am going to bring this up because I want to temper expectations. You know, I have no idea what kind of proposals we're going to get, if any. I don't know if those proposals are going to be for a lease option or a sales option, but like I said, I just want to temper expectations. The possibility of somebody paying $3.5 million for that property is very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, so the $3.5 million we paid was not necessarily for the property in the condition that it was in currently and the buildings on it. It was for the development potential that exists there. And so that development potential is gone.
Right.
I think if you compare this to like the Thayer Homestead at Medway, you know, Medway purchased the Thayer Homestead for $400,000 and then utilized $3.5 million in CPA funds to renovate it. Ashland, on the other hand, just because of the situation that we were in, needed to purchase the property for $3.5 million And that doesn't necessarily leave $400,000 for us to
play with.
Right.
I mean, I think even if we emptied our CPA accounts, even if you looked at the affordable housing ones, we wouldn't have enough to even, I think, bring the property up to code. So I'm only bringing this up. I just want to temper expectations for people at the outset. So I
Yeah,
think
no, I understand. I was just using that as an example. I understand that, but I just was wanting to make sure that there's no other mechanism that's available to any potential owner down the road. That's all.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right. I'll turn it back over to Jen now.
Yep.
So moving on, one of the things that we need to also have on this warrant is an acceptance of an easement. So it would actually be a sort of a friendly taking from Independence Lane to create a booster pump station for the Independence Lane neighborhood and street based on the Robert Hill Way development. And so, you know, we're working on that. I know in that draft, there isn't much of the details, but we're sort of working on that with DPW. And so I'll have that as soon as I can for you. The Stormwater Advisory Committee also requested that we add a revision to our general bylaw for our municipal lien bylaw, which I believe we accepted in 2018 at our special town meeting. And really that allowed us to lien a property if somebody did not pay. And really we focused on 3 items. And I believe it was unpaid fees for development agreements, contracts, or violation of tax agreements. And so the Stormwater Advisory Committee has been discussing, you know, some ways to assure that they get or they receive the fees for stormwater. And so they had requested that we add a 4th category, which would allow the town to lien somebody's property if there were outstanding stormwater fees. 2 of the articles that we actually deferred from May were funding proposals for CPC funds. They are working on getting the final votes because they sort of held off once we discussed deferring to our special town meeting. So one is for funding for the first section of the Upper Charles Trail for Trolley Brook. I believe in here, I have it as $200,000, which I think was the initial ask based on some grant funds that we were able to receive and some refinements to our estimates. I believe that request will go from 200,000 to 120,000, but I kept it as the original because they have not voted yet on that. And then second is funding for town forest improvements. And I believe that's for $9,700. And that's various improvements, including deer enclosure and some other, I think, fencing and some other projects so that they can work on continuing to enhance the trail system in the forest. And then lastly, there's a very small, basically it's a typo. So we have to amend the zoning bylaw for design review process. And really it was our current code basically dropped one of the sections. And so we're really just fixing that typo so that when you are looking at what triggers design review, it actually refers to the proper section in the code. And so that should be, you know, a relatively more like a cleanup article that we've been sort of pushed. We deferred again from May. The planning board will have a hearing in the next few weeks and make a recommendation for that as well. And I think that is all that we have for right now.
Any questions from any board members on this draft for our warrant? Okay, so the plan, Michael and Jen, is that we will have this finalized and we will vote and close the warrant at our next select board meeting, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. So I would say if people are watching and they have questions, certainly the planning board will be posting their their hearing for the overlay district. And if you have questions on any of these, please reach out to any of us or Jen or Michael. Start asking your questions now so that we can have a good discussion about these. So Michael, now if you would talk us through the two town meeting dates and what that means and what we would ask of residents.
All right, so this is, I hope this
I'm
doesn't.
going to stop sharing.
Hope this doesn't muddy the conversation, the previous conversation that we had. So we've got a number of challenges coming up this year, in relation to how do we accomplish the business that we need to get accomplished in a way that is fair and in a way that encourages people to not have to choose their health over their ability to weigh in and voice their opinion on certain projects. There are some things that we need to get done before the end of the calendar year so we can set the tax rate. At the same time, we also have two very, very major building projects that deserve a lot of attention and a lot of scrutiny and a lot of questioning. So in that context, what we have decided to do is move forward with two special town meetings. We typically have one in the fall. We are now looking at doing two. One in December, being December 8th, 2020, and then the next one being January 9th, 2021. The one on December 8th, we just reviewed the warrant associated with that. Those are more of our routine articles. We do have a couple of things that are big, but are not necessarily routine, but they are timely. And so those are going to be put on the December 8th, 2020 town meeting. That town meeting will be run like, for lack of a better word, a regular town meeting. We're still going to make decisions about should it be in the gym, should it be in the auditorium, how do we maintain social distancing, things of that nature. But for the most part, it is going to look like a regular special town meeting in Ashland. We're doing it in December as opposed to November when we traditionally have it. The second special town meeting that we're planning on having on January 9th will be devoted to the two building projects in town, the public safety building and then also the new Mendez School. That vote or that town meeting is going to be run very differently. The moderator has been extremely, I think, resolute in ensuring that people have an opportunity to come vote and, again, not necessarily feel like they are putting their health at risk. So we are still working out some of the fine details, but the concept will be that in the morning, we will run through the presentations and everything for the two projects, answer questions. People will be able to either come to a town meet to where we will hold town meeting or view that remotely. And then the idea is to basically call the question for each of the two projects, leave those questions open for a period of, let's just say 2 hours. That hasn't been decided if it's going to be 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 1 hour. And then people will have the opportunity to come in and vote. And in that way, you're not collected as a large group in a contained space. So you don't have to feel like you're necessarily, again, putting your health at risk, but you still have the opportunity to go and weigh in and voice your opinion on the project. So how does...
Michael, can I jump in a little bit with that?
Yeah.
Just add to that a little bit. A couple things. One, when we were talking about these two building projects with the moderator, the timing of it is key, because if we were holding this in, say, October, obviously the weather plays a huge role in where we have it and what our options are. So, as Michael said, the moderator was very concerned about making sure that people had an opportunity to come to town meeting and voice voice their vote and not have to choose between their health or doing it outside in potentially really cold weather in January or December. So this is sort of the option. The other part of it is, you know, the voting, the period of time that's going to be open for vote. Again, we haven't nailed down the logistics, but the moderator feels that people should come to a microphone and publicly voice their vote. So that not only is it being, you know, a vote being cast, but the vote is a public declaration. So there's kind of two parts to that, as you know. So it's I think that's an important distinction, because town meeting is a public body. So we want to make sure we maintain that that distinction.
So Michael, I just had a question. So the one in December is still on a Tuesday night? I thought we were going to do both of them on Saturdays.
No, I maybe I missed a conversation where that was discussed, but I don't remember that.
Okay. Okay.
Well, can I just to follow up on that? So first of all, the Saturday one, I'm sorry, did you say the times? Is it going to start at 10 or something like that, or what?
We haven't worked that out yet, Rob.
But it'll be several hours, I presume, where people would come by and vote. Okay. It sounds like people are, you know, doing some serious thinking about how to make it safe. And it sounds like, I think you're on the right trail. I'm concerned about for want of a better term, the regular one. And, you know, because there are some articles on there that will be explained and perhaps people will want to talk about. And so I guess I'm concerned about safety on that one and what measures are being taken there. Because, you know, are we going to, because there's no, so people are going to be in the gym, I think, is that the latest thinking on that, or where's that?
The auditorium, or maybe both. We're still working out a lot of the details, Rob. I think we came to an agreement just really recently on this is the way conceptually that we're going to move forward. So now we have to get the details, you know, the devil's in the details, right? The specifics. So
you're looking at ways of ventilating and keeping air moving through our filtering air, are somehow trying to keep, you know, any virus from building up, because that's when exposure, that's when transmission occurs. Certainly when you've got time is when, you know, is a key ingredient. So, you know, that's the difference between the first one. I mean, the one we had previously was a very routine and quick meeting. This one may not be as routine or quick. There are some warrant articles that people will want to talk about and explain. So I guess I'm just hope we can come up with some measures on that one as well.
I agree, and I can tell you with confidence that that is foremost on everybody's minds, just because of the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Rob, if they follow the procedure that the schools have been following, they've been leaving their windows and doors open for that air circulation to come through. So if
the auditorium striking me as a difficult place to do something like that.
Oh, it is. So that's why it was my assumption that they were going to be using the gymnasium and or cafeteria where there are windows and doors available.
Yeah.
Yeah. The auditorium is more closed area, but the other two are not.
It's one thing, I don't know, have the schools been able to get those new filters at ERM 13 or whatever? They're supposed to be able to filter out viruses, but I just don't know if they've been successful. It can be difficult to get those filters. So.
Yeah, and I think we showed for Springtown meeting, I mean, granted that was for, you know, we only had space for about 150 people, I think, that we know, you know, we can do it safely. We can find ways to do it. I think the auditorium may be a little bit more difficult to do that in regards to seating. But I think if we are, you know, if we can have 3 areas and make it spread out so people don't feel like they have to be close together, we can make it safe. or as safe as possible.
Madam Chair, I do have a question for Michael for the second town meeting
Yep.
on the 9th with respect to the voting for the two projects. And I appreciate Brandy's given us the explanation that you know, people have to come to a microphone and express their vote publicly. So that eliminates, you know, a private ballot type of deal. And I appreciate that. Will there be a running tally? So say, you know, as people go up to the microphone and cast their vote publicly, will there be a running tally like on the screen so people know who's yay or nay, you know, totals? Or do we have to wait until the end of the 2 or 3 hour period? You know, where we have the electronic availability to do that. I was wondering if they could post, you know, the yeas and nays as they're read out type of deal.
Joe, we didn't talk about specifics, or I didn't talk about specifics about that with the moderator. And Brandy, feel free to chime in if you've had a subsequent conversation. I don't think we're talking about having a running total that is like on the screen or anything like that. There will be a running total that just for, you know, obviously we'll need to do that to count the votes.
All right.
I think what the moderator was thinking was that when people would check in for town meeting, they would receive 2 cards, and for each of the ballot, each of the warrant articles, as they went and publicly voted yes or no for, say, Article 1 and then Article 2, they would then take their cards and put them in the yes or no box for each of the articles, and then it would be tallied at the end.
Okay, so they're not making a verbal.
No, they are.
declaration.
They're doing both.
They're going to do both. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Michael? And I would say again, to public watching and hearing this, reach out to us, ask us your questions, tell us your concerns. You know, I want to hear people's thoughts and concerns. Emailing us, calling any of us, or attending a meeting like this is the best place to voice your concerns about any of this.
Mhm.
So this is our public format, and this is the way to do it. Or picking up the phone and calling any of us. Okay.
And if you have a hard time spelling my name, my phone number is 881-5205.
Mine's 881-5592. So.
And I'm in the phone book. Always have been, always will be.
Okay. Moving on, priority project update, starting with the rail transit district.
So we have received some correspondence from DHCD regarding the UGC development, senior affordable housing development. Those of you that were CC'd on that, and I believe the select board was, and if you had a chance to review that, you would have seen that instead of 180 units, it was listed as 1,080 units.
I was in 80.
So
Yeah, that got fixed.
I did reach out to Bertha and
I remember that.
kindly to make that correction, which she said absolutely. So that will be moving forward. And again, the next, it still has some stuff that has to go through DHCD, but you know, the next step will be the ZBA process and the comprehensive permit process.
Nice. Michael, were we able to get the map I had talked about, at least penciled in, dog park, trail? Were we able to do that?
We've got the dog park piece.
Okay.
To superimpose the trail on it.
Okay. And then just real quick, I did get to touch base with Peter Weisberger from the YMCA. They are still planning on moving forward. Of course, with everything going on, they've put their capital fundraising on hold for right now, but they hope to get back into that probably early in the spring for the new Y in Ashland, but they are still committed. But of course, with COVID hitting, their priority has been fundraising for needs for the community. So, but I did get the word that that is still something that's going to be happening. Okay. Anything else for the rail transit district? Any questions from anybody? Okay, moving on to downtown.
So downtown, so the contract documents have been assembled. Notice of award has been issued finally. So we're moving forward with that. We should, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting. We're hoping to find out if we were successful in obtaining a MassWorks grant in mid-November.
So Michael, what was this MassWorks grant for? Because don't we already have a MassWorks grant for downtown? Is this amending that?
Yeah, it was for the same project. It was, just remember when we did the bids back in the spring, they ended up coming in a lot higher than what we'd anticipated.
Right.
So we spent the summer spending some time closing that gap by, looking at scope of work and maybe looking at what we could do in-house, and then finding maybe additional revenue sources that were not taxpayer resources, again, that we could do to close that gap. Still, I do think it's important for us to try to find a way to utilize state money as opposed to local funds for any of this. So that is why we put in the MassWorks grant. So
great.
Hopefully we will not have to spend as much of our own money as we need, because we had very little room for error.
Right. Well, this is just another way of getting our own tax dollars back. So
you can certainly look at it that way. Those MassWorks grants come from regular local taxpayers.
Yep. Okay.
So there's that. Public safety building. It was interesting. Just to update everybody about the Conservation Commission. We met in early or late October. Conservation Commission had expressed some concerns with our offsite replication plan, but actually it was DEP who really kind of made some comments that suggested that would not be approved. Our offsite mitigation plan would not be approved. So we did spend some time going through and trying to find alternatives, especially those on the gift parcel itself. And we were successful in that. And so that information and those plans have been submitted to the Conservation Commission. We'll be meeting next Monday. Hopefully it will be satisfactory to the commission and we can move forward. I will point out, we still do not have the deed from Howard Fafford. Again, can't reinforce enough the fact that we have met our obligations under the gift agreement that's now 2 years old. And, I don't have much to add about that. I can't explain it. Usually when you sign an agreement, there's expectation there.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
We also met today just to finalize some of the exterior design options. You'll be happy to know I was not a part of that.
Well, let's rephrase that. He was actually present, but he was instructed not to weigh in on any color selection whatsoever.
Well, we didn't get to that point, but that was on everybody's mind. That's for sure.
Jen was very, very strategically helpful with that and kept him outside.
It's all about managing up, right, JB?
There you go.
Good job.
So if you have problems with the design of the brick,
it's not your fault.
Not me.
I think folks will be very pleased with the brick selection and the color scheme as well. It's going to mirror some of the brick that we see around town in various shades of red brick, but it should.
We're leaning historical.
It'll look nice. It'll blend in with many of our municipal buildings.
Yeah, it does look really good. I didn't have the heart to tell Steve and Joe and Jen, but I had actually talked with Janet, our architect, beforehand, and we kind of had everything assembled.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Good.
We
And
also,
so,
look-
so just, and, as people are watching, and I know people keep saying, oh, I thought we voted on that. No, we voted on the design and the engineering. So that's what's happening right now. And then it will come to town meeting in January, when people can have the decision to move the actual construction forward or not. So keep watching. There'll be, I'm sure, a few more public forums before then. Steve, I have to say, I've been enjoying all your posts about the public safety building. I think it's been great, the information that has gone out via Facebook and through social media. So be on the lookout. And again, if you are looking at these posts and you have questions, reach out to the Public Safety Building Committee or to the Mendez. I mean, we are all here. We want to answer your questions. We want to make sure you understand what is happening in these challenging times. We have to find different ways to communicate, but a phone call or an email is always a great way to ask a question and get the answer.
But just to expand a little bit, Yolanda, on
Yep.
your comments, the public safety building is out to bid right now, and
Right.
went out last week. The bids from the subcontractors are due on December the 4th, excuse me, and the general contractors are due back, I believe, on December the 18th. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, but I think it's December the 18th.
I think you're correct. Yes.
So Steve, talk to because, I don't respond on Facebook, but I see people's comments and concerns. Can you or Joe or Jen talk about the process that's happening and why you're doing what you're doing before it comes to town meeting?
Why we're doing
The bid process and the subcontractors and the contractors and all that.
But Jen can speak to that. She's the master of procurement for the town of Ashland. And, this is all legislated by Massachusetts procurement laws. And we're just following, the public bidding process. And, the Mendez School will go through the same process when you're at that point. And
Yep.
it requires file sub-bid bids from a group of subcontractors. Joe and I were part of a process of pre-approving subcontractors and general contractors, and this is just part of the process.
But why is it being done now? I guess what I'm trying to get to is the goal is that you will then have a number as to what it's going to cost us to build this.
So the goal is obviously, to have specific price that we can then go to the town.
Okay.
And then secure the financing. Of course, first we have to secure the deed to the property, but that's another story.
We're working on that.
But that's, so ideally, in an ideal world, we'd break ground sometime in the spring.
Okay.
Yolanda, just to expound on that a little bit more, it's nicer to have a more accurate figure to provide to the citizens.
Right.
Because right now, I mean, that's the number one concern. How much is it going to cost us? How much more per thousand per year are our taxes going to go up? And we can't even give an accurate figure on that until we get those figures to come in from the bids. So once we get those bids out there and we get them returned, we'll have more of an accurate figure.
And I'm going to correct you there, Joe, because you said how much more thousands will our taxes go up? I don't.
Hundreds. How's that?
I was going to say, yeah. So I think based on the estimates, yes, people are going to see that increase, but it's going to be, and it'll be based on the value of your home and things like that. So.
Right.
And that information will be put out
Right.
in a very cohesive fashion. The other thing I think the committee is very hopeful about is because of the current economic conditions, we had a tremendous amount of interest in bidding on this project. And so we're hopeful that we're going to see very favorable pricing come back, which would be obviously fantastic.
Right. And beneficial to the community.
Our OPM had said that, receiving 10 general contractors interested in bidding this process is something that is unheard of. Maybe 5 or 6, but we have 10.
Wow.
And the same with the subcontractors. We've had over 50 subcontractors, bidding on this. So it's to our advantage as a town. So yeah, granted, people are experiencing, difficulties right now economically, but it's very beneficial. Bless you. It's very beneficial to the town because it can work in the opposite in getting a better rate for the building.
Okay, good. Thank you for that, Joe and Steve and Michael. Next item for our priority projects is the Warren District and Valentine Estate. Anything new other than the discussion of the warrant articles that we need to be aware of?
I will say that we've had a couple of walkthroughs at the Valentine Estate per the RFP process. It's a prescribed process. We have had some interest from people, it doesn't mean that they're going to bid, but it does mean that they feel like it's worth their time to come in and investigate the property.
Okay.
And we should be getting bids in soon on the Warren Barn, so I'll be excited to move that one forward.
Oh, that'll be nice. It'll be good to get that going again.
Yep.
Okay. If there are no questions from any of the board members on any of our priority projects, we will go to town manager report.
So I'll start with a COVID update, and I'll talk about two specific things. First off, we had an incident. I don't know. Is Ed still here?
No, he dropped off.
Oh, he's going to be really upset when he realizes I was going to ask him to speak to something and he wasn't. But he wants him hop on.
He might. If he hops on, we'll let him talk.
So the Warren Conference Center, which is owned by Framingham State, has for a while now been serving. One of the programs that they have been running is a girls hockey school. So it's for 14 and 18-year-old young women. They stay there. They're doing their learning there. They come from all parts of the country, maybe even from different countries. And they do a lot of hockey practice and they go to tournaments. Unfortunately, they went to a tournament recently in Michigan, and one of them contracted COVID, was unaware of it at the time, traveled back with the team. Of course, they're staying in the cabins. And so unfortunately, we've had a number of positives. We weren't aware of that until it started hitting our numbers, because they had all given their address as the Warren Conference Center. So in essence, they were considered Ashland residents and counted towards our numbers. I had a very good conversation with Dale Hamill yesterday, Dr. Hamill, along with Eileen, their Director of Health Services. We had Ed, Sergeant Berman there, Diane Mortensen as the Chair of the Board of Health, and also Mark Orm as their health agent to discuss this and discuss how it's going to be handled moving forward. And then also we talked about the possibility of seeing if we could get those people removed from our numbers, because they're being contained right now. They should be using their home addresses as opposed to ours. So we felt positive coming out of that meeting. The other thing, and this is a recent development, we have had some exposures in some of our younger kids, and I'm not going to get into too many details, but we're still in the process of identifying who should be quarantined and who are close contacts. So out of an abundance of caution, we're going to be stopping youth sports programs for about a week right now. Again, I don't want anybody to panic. This is really out of an overabundance of caution, but we find.
So these are youth sports. So these are not sports like our athletic teams at the middle school and high school. These are like the softball that's outside of school and the baseball that's out of school and soccer and stuff like that.
And it's good point, K through 8 as well. So it's
okay,
not a high school at all. or any high school sports. So
Okay.
again, don't want anybody to panic about this. This is just, we found that if we're conservative and
Right.
really take these strong actions at the beginning, we're able to contain it a lot better, and it just makes life easier for everybody in town, not just the people who are working on this.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Michael, would that be like basketball? Is that, I mean, basically this time of year, that must be basketball, hockey.
I don't
Well,
think,
there's flag football. There's all kinds of
Oh, they're still playing football, yeah.
Oh, really?
flag football.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And soccer, I guess.
Yep.
Still.
no. I have to say, like, I know I get the emails from Jim Adams about positive cases at the different schools, and I have to, give everyone huge kudos for sort of the process they developed for, identifying cases and communicating out and isolating and contact tracing. I think, it's a huge accomplishment to have cases that we've identified in schools and not having to shut down schools and go fully remote and things like that. I think that's, it shows sort of the process that's been put in place, and the conservative effort that's been put in place is really paying off. So
Yeah, I think the cohorts with the A's and the B's and no one in school on Wednesdays, that has really saved them in regards to safety, and when someone gets identified as a case and what they're doing. Yeah, we are fortunate to have the group that we have doing what they do.
Michael, just a question about the first case at the Warren. So are these kids still in quarantine there, or what ended up happening?
I need to get all of the details, Rob.
All right.
There's been a lot of things. I can get that.
Okay, sure.
It actually, this is actually a great segue into kind of recognizing the team that we do have doing a lot of this contact tracing work. Again, tracing things down to patient zero. One person who I don't think gets mentioned a lot is Amy Childs. Amy's been working on this for in a volunteer and a professional capacity since really this pandemic hit. And she is really persistent and really perseveres in trying to get, again, to that patient zero, that initial case that things spread out from. So in addition to Ed and Nancy Cleary and all of our school nurses, she's been really a big part of the success that we've had in containing this.
And I think with the whole COVID thing, it's so hard to know what you should, if you think you've been exposed, when do you get tested? When do you follow up with testing? It's not easy.
Right.
So
So
just a comment on testing. There's been local testing going on for quite some time, and I know a lot of folks certainly are making preparations for Thanksgiving, and wanting to ensure that if they're having guests over, that there's some at least reasonable surety as to what your status is. So there's testing going on currently at TJX in Framingham drive-through. So that's an opportunity for folks to very quickly go through, and it's probably something, I know they're encouraging folks to get tested on a regular basis, because exposures are going to vary, depending on the circumstances. So there's opportunities there for testing.
Right. Though if, it's one of those things where if there's a possibility of exposure, it's the timing of when you get tested. Because if you think you've been exposed and then you test the next day, that's not that, you got to go like 3-4 days or 5 days out from exposure. So, okay.
Right. Oh,
Anything-
one question about or an observation? I guess you folks probably are on Facebook more than I am, but there was the Dollar Tree incident, and seemed like the police stepped in and took care of that. So I thought that was very good. And, thanks for handling that. And, concerned citizens brought attention to something, and I'm glad they did. And we responded very appropriately. So I thought that was great. That was very good. So.
Yep.
Rob, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that illustrates some of the things that Yolanda has been trying to say over the course of the night. Our awareness of that incident and the way we handled that didn't come from Facebook. It actually came from a couple of calls into our board.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And I had actually received an email directly from someone in town. Again, like you said, Yolanda, the best way to, if you really are looking for an answer or you really want to address a problem, the best thing to do is, either call us or email us.
Yep.
Yeah. What was the circumstance? I'm not familiar with this. What's transpiring?
So the report that came in is that a person walked into the store without wearing a mask and was basically encouraged to do so at the time by the employee that was working there, which happened to be, I believe, an assistant manager. So obviously, with the mask mandate, if you have a medical condition, you are not required to wear a mask. I think, that is certainly a dubious distinction in terms of whether you have a medical condition or not, but the nonchalantness, I think, of which it was addressed by the store personnel was what was the biggest cause of concern.
Okay, and so how was it resolved?
Our police department went over there and educated them on the proper use of mask wearing, the mandates, the requirements, and especially with the most recent guidelines, which we haven't even touched upon. It's even just that much more important, and that's much more mandated, I guess you could say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, if I may,
ahead.
just to give a quick update on the hockey team, the girls hockey team at the Warren Center. They've been quarantined there. So, a good portion of them are still there. And there's some that weren't part of that return back home, and they're still allowed to practice, but they haven't been in contact with those kids that were in contact on their way home. So that's the most recent update with respect to that. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there's nothing else on COVID. The Energy and Environmental Affairs Planning Assistance Grant. Michael?
Yes, we just wanted to let the board know that we were recently successful in working with MAPC to do this Energy and Environmental Affairs Planning Assistance Grant through MAPC. We're working with the town of Natick, and the city of Framingham. And it's going to help us. It's assistance with helping us meet our net zero goals. So I've included some information about that in your packet, just for your information, because I know it's something that is important to the board. So I want to give a shout out to Frank Nicasian. Of course, he really, from the town of Ashland perspective, has been the point person on this. So he's been doing some good work.
Yeah, it looked like an interesting grant. I went through it, and what we're going to get out of it will be beneficial to us. And it's nice to see that we're working with other communities in the region.
So any other thoughts on that? Or I'll move on to our last.
Well, I just want to say, that's great work. And, Michael, I just, reminds me that I think it was your idea to use funding from this, our aggregate contract to fund Frank's position. And, I think it's all paying off. So, because you need to invest resources to get resources like this. So,
yeah, thanks, Rob. And you know what? It's really, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think some people say and spread that, this adder for Frank's position equates to something like $6 a month on the average ratepayer's bill, and it's 60 cents a month.
Okay. Sure.
So I just want to be clear, that everybody knows that you're not paying, $72 a year for this service. Each individual is not paying $72 a year for this. It's more like $7.
Well, and I also think that, again, he's working and bringing grant money back to the community for a community that has said they want to be net zero and are very supportive of sustainability. So you have to have someone who can be working on that to make it happen. It's not just going to happen by itself.
Right.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. And then finally, just wanted to check back in on the employee recognition. We've talked about it. Really think we really like the idea of the boxed lunch. And Susan, feel free to jump in if I'm getting anything wrong, because you are certainly.
We know that you're the one coordinating it, Susan. So
glad everybody's got it figured out. And then also some small awards, some small tokens, and then do
Very good.
basically like the road show, like we talked about before, going to the different departments. We will need the board support in that, in making that happen. And I don't see it to be an issue. Susan, do you have any figures now available for that, or is that something that you're still working on?
I'm actually having a meeting tomorrow morning with Lisa. So I will have better information at the next meeting. I have limited right now.
okay, great. Sounds good.
And then, my last thing is I really like a lot of sentiments around the country and through the town. I'm really hoping that regardless of the outcome of this election, I don't think we're still going to know tonight, that we just find a way to use it as an opportunity to bring us together and not necessarily divide us. There's going to be some strong emotions, both negative and positive, at the outcome of this. And I just hope that, again, we can utilize a little bit of pause and restraint before we act out on some of those emotions. Because, I know COVID stinks. It really does. We're all tired of it. We've all got fatigue. We've all got election fatigue. But eventually this will end. And we're going to be back to normal. It'll be a new normal, but we will be back to normal again. And I do, people have to realize that you're going to see your next door neighbors on a regular basis. Susan's going to be sitting watching Hunter playing baseball or football in the stands with, people that she hasn't seen regularly in a long time. We're going to get back to that point. And so
I just think it's going to look a little different, right? I think masks may for a while. I don't know for sure, but I mean, things that we used to not think about as being normal, then we might need to change those. So just like there's a new alphabet song out apparently. So.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We have 27 letters now?
No, it's the same number of letters. You just sing it differently.
Oh, I thought it was Common Core alphabet.
Okay, if you have nothing else, Michael, we will go to board reports. Let's see. Brandy, I'll start with you today.
Okay, I'll be pretty brief. I just wanted to give you guys an update. We had our first meeting last week with the Housing Production Plan Committee with MAPC, and it's a really good group. Folks from Planning Board and Board of Health and CPA and I know I'm missing people, but there's a good group of people that are involved in the process. We had a great first initial meeting. For folks who aren't really familiar with what this committee is going to be doing, we had initially had a housing production plan that's approximately 5 years old. And this is really updating that plan with MAPC. And it's really there's three main goals. One is to look to meet the housing need in Ashland. Second is really to proactively influence development and look to include inclusionary zoning, which basically means deed restricted affordable housing in Ashland. And third is really to comply with the state Chapter 40B, which we're all pretty familiar with, which is the goal of having 10% affordable housing in Ashland. So we had our first initial meeting. What we are doing is we're going to be putting together a couple focus groups, one looking at housing need, one looking at housing development. And we're pulling those people together. We're going to have focus groups. And then the process is we're going to have our first public forum. There's going to be 2 public forums through this process. We don't have a date yet in December, but the first one will be at some point in December, right around the holidays. We'll probably have that date in the next couple of weeks. So at our next meeting, I can let everyone know what that date will be.
That'd be great.
Everything will be on Zoom. Everything will be virtual, but it's a good way for the public to provide input into the housing production plan process. This whole process is really going to take about somewhere between 10 months and a year from start to finish. And along those lines, there'll be a couple public forums. There will be presentations to both the planning board and the select board. And then the goal at the end of it is to present a final draft for approval to the 2 boards that then gets submitted to the state to be submitted for, to be accepted for our housing production plan. So that is the goal, and we're just in the very beginning of the process, but it will be something that we want public involvement and public participation.
So Brandy, I was looking through some files of mine and I found my paper copy of the 2015 housing production plan and some notes on inclusionary zoning.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen them. If not, I'm willing to hand them off to you if you're interested.
I would love your notes on
Okay.
on the inclusionary zoning.
Okay.
I have a copy of the production plan, that the first one that we
Okay.
had done. So
Good.
but I would
Then I
love
can
your notes. Yeah.
Probably just
Thanks.
get rid of mine. Because I'm sure we have it someplace electronically too, right, Michael?
We do.
Yes. Okay. Good. Anything else, Brandy?
No, the only other thing I would just say is that, you know, we were talking about COVID, and something that is, you know, top of mind for me and my family, and I'm sure all of yours as well, is as we get close to Thanksgiving and as we move into winter, and, you know, the cases spike and we move into sort of a different phase of this virus. You know, I want to make sure people are aware of ways to make sure that their mental health is good, because, you know, I think winter, it's going to be a rough time for folks. It's going to be a rough time for kids. There won't be youth sports. There's going to be a lot of limitations on things that can be done indoors. And I think there's a reason that there should be limitations on things done indoors, because we all should be taking precautions. But I just wanted to make sure people are taking care of themselves, really taking care of themselves mentally, because it's been a really, really tough year. I think, you know, Michael alluded to it when we were talking about the election, but it's all taken a real toll on all of us. So, you know, just acknowledging that and, you know, talking to one another, making sure you reach out to the people that you may or may not be able to physically see a lot of in the next few months. It's just something that it's important. So,
Yep. Good
And that is all.
advice, Brandy. Good. Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brandy, I appreciate those comments. With respect to the housing design plan and exclusionary information you may want to get a hold of, or I'll have him reach out to you, is sure. He's on the Affordable Housing Trust with us. That's Steve Greenberg. Steve is a proponent for that whole scenario, and he has information, and he also has wording with respect to that, because he's done a lot of research on that. So
Yeah.
I'll have him reach out to you with that information as well.
Steve is on our committee.
Oh, okay.
I left him off, but
You left him off. Okay.
he's part of our group. So
I wanted to make sure that, okay, cool. All right. Well, good.
yeah, he's part of it.
Okay, good. I'm sure we'll hear about it on the 19th. I just want to remind people that we do have open positions available on the Ashland Housing Authority. There are 2 positions available. We already discussed it, but I wanted to remind people again. And take a look at the town calendar, see when they meet. Make yourself available to a meeting and see if it's something that you would be interested in doing. I know that we have 1 position available on the Ashland Affordable Housing Trust. Our next meeting is the 19th of November. Please feel free to join us during that meeting. They begin at 3 o'clock. We meet once a month. We've had some people who already shown interest, and hopefully they would continue this interest, but at the same token, we're looking for diversity within our rank and file. And we would also like to see members, and maybe we can have an associate member be a member or even a client of an affordable housing unit, so they can give us a better understanding of, what it's like to be there and do the things that need to be done to live in one of those units. Though you wouldn't know that you're in an affordable unit because they all look the same.
Right.
Secondly, I would just like to express my concerns and my feelings about what's been going on over the last 6 or 7 months in our country. We all need to take a deep breath and relax. No matter what the outcome is, I'm glad to see that a lot of people voted. It's our right to do so. It's not a God-given right, but it's a right that was provided to us through our government and through many men and women who sacrificed their lives. So we have the opportunity to speak our mind and do what we need to do to make this country a great country again. So I don't know if there's been a decision yet or not. I have the TV on quietly, but there's no major decision yet. But I know that Vice President Biden is close to 270, and we'll see what happens. He's at 260, okay. 251, whatever that may be.
That's okay. We'll all be done
Yeah.
soon and we can go look.
So we'll go watch it. I would just like to say thank you to everybody for sticking out, and I would just like to say thank you to the parents of last weekend. They used common sense when it came out to trick-or-treating. And though we didn't have that many, those that came with young kids, social distanced, they had their masks on, and they were doing everything they needed to do to have a little bit of fun during these, trying times. And I agree with Brandy. Mentally, we need to stay strong. It's not an easy time. And let's remember those folks who are home alone. Try to reach out to them via a phone call, or even swing by and talk to them through a window, through a door. It's anything. I mean, we're human by nature. We're social, and to keep that part away from our lives is not a good thing. So if you have the ability to do that, I strongly advise you to do it. We've been doing it in our neighborhood and stuff. So if we can do it, everybody can do it. And I hate to just see people home alone, especially during Thanksgiving. Walgreens is having a special. I think I may have mentioned to some of you already. The week of Thanksgiving, if you go get tested, you take the test that Sunday, you will know by Tuesday. And if you're negative, that test is good for 3 days. So that covers that Thanksgiving time period. So you could be with your family, you could be with some of your friends. So that may help alleviate some of that stress of not being with the people that you want to be with. So
Unfortunately, Joe, that only works if you take the test Sunday and then self-quarantine.
well, I understand that, but at least that's an opportunity for
Right,
people to be able to
right.
do
You can
that.
certainly
So
make that decision.
right. So let them have the, some people may not know that's available. So let them try it. So that's it, Madam Chair.
Great.
Other
Thank
than
you,
that,
Joe. Thank you, Joe. Steve.
Thank you. So the Mass Municipal Association annual meeting this year is virtual.
Yep.
It's January the 21st and the 22nd, the Thursday and Friday this year. And so historically we've let Susan know if we're interested in attending, to get registered and so on. Personally, I'm not sure what I'm going to do this year. For me, the most important part of MMA annual meeting are the workshops. So it really depends on the workshops more than anything. So
So are they charging? I haven't looked at it yet. Are they charging still
they're-
for it, Steve?
yeah, and they're going to have keynote speakers. They're going to have the same format.
Yeah.
It'll just be virtual. So so that's coming up. That's something for the board to, certainly to advise.
Let Susan know. Okay.
I do want to, and again, I appreciate Brandy's comments about mental health and just the concerns about, the environment that we're living in right now. And really, it impacts all demographics. I don't believe it impacts one more than the other, but I think it's just very important that we're cognizant of it, both, personally in our own households, as well as Joe stated, our friends and neighbors as well. So, everything that we can do to, I think, just make those connections, I think are good things.
Good.
I do want to thank the board for supporting the senior breakfast, which is Veterans Breakfast is next Monday. And typically we get about 30 or 35 people. We've got 72 signed up right now.
So do you need help with that, Steve?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got 72. So that you've heard the term, there's no such thing as a free lunch.
For these people, there is.
They're coming out for the free lunch.
There you go. That's okay.
And then my last comment, I think we're all reflecting on a lot of things these days. And certainly the election is one of them. But beyond just the election, I think it's the state of our country, the state of our communities, and how do we, how do we respond to that? It's very easy to get discouraged with what we see and what we hear, and then, we have a meeting like this where we recognize 3 people that have worked for this community for in excess of 100 years, I think, as Diane tabulated. And, this is what it's about. It's, you got to balance things out with how we interact where the rubber hits the road, which is, when we see each other in the stores and the restaurants and in a Zoom meeting, right? The sun's going to come up tomorrow. November the 18th, we're going to meet again. And, I think it's, we just need to continually keep things in perspective. So, that's my 2 cents. I'm not going to say words of wisdom, but my 2 cents. So
Great.
thank you.
Thank you for that, Steve. Rob?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, just a couple items. One thing we did celebrate Halloween at the end of our driveway with a bonfire, little fire, and the kids came by, and not that many. We had about 10, I think, but the adults, I think, had a better time because people kept showing up and sitting around the fire, so that was nice. And we stayed safe, socially distant, but Diane stopped by as well. Is she still in the meeting? But
Yep.
Yeah. I had one thing. I had kind of an observation, a question from Michael about Chapter 70 funds.
90.
Sorry, Chapter 90 funds. So, I was at the policy committee had another meeting where they ended up making a formal recommendation to the MMA board about funding for Chapter 90, and it was the same number we talked about, the 300 million per year for 2 years. And I think that's probably happened. But anyway, there was a kind of a move to change that, and I don't know if this is something you've heard about or the city managers are talking about, but they wanted as a way to give the legislature some sort of incentive to pass that level was to actually change it and call it a match program. They were going to reduce it to 200 and have 100 million as a match. And it was a little low on details of what would qualify as a match. And then someone started talking about it almost as if a grant program. The interesting thing was the proposal was only narrowly defeated. It was like 7-5 at the committee. And then they went for the regular one. But is that something that's making the rounds, or have you heard about that's a potentially successful strategy?
I have not heard that, Rob. I'm hearing actually more of a movement to start really looking and pushing, not just looking at pushing for a way to address the state and local government revenue sharing that happens, not just for transportation, but for everything. I think I've made this point before. You know, we have property taxes. You know, the state pulls in sales tax, income tax, tolls, gas tax. And then we're really kind of left as localities kind of, you know, after the big state government bureaucracy has been fed, you know, we're kind of left with some of the scraps. So I think you might see more of a movement afoot to maybe say, okay, a town that has, let us keep our own gas tax amount.
No, that's interesting. Well, so that actually didn't come up at the policy committee, that whole approach. So
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know if it's at the board or the MMA board or what they're doing with it, but
yeah, it's it'll be there.
okay, good. And the other thing is, I've been nominated, and actually, I'm not sure how it came out. I've been how it resulted, but I've been nominated to be on the executive committee of the MBTA advisory board, which should be good if that happens, but I'll keep you posted. I actually had to miss the last meeting, so because something came up at work, but it was going to be about service cuts to commuter rail, which of course I don't see how they can avoid that given the reduction in ridership, but more to come there. And I would just suggest if people have concerns about ridership or the schedule, the new schedule, I think we're still in a pretty good position compared to other parts of the system. And I actually don't know how many people are actually actively using commuter rail now. But at some
That
point,
parking lot looks pretty empty most
Yeah.
days.
and at some point, I would think we're going to go back to the same traffic issues. So let's keep an eye on that. I would just say if people have concerns or people out there, email me or the board about your commuter rail issues, and I'll bring them up at the advisory board. And the last thing, I just you know, I appreciate folks' comments tonight from Michael and Joe and Steve and Brandy and Yolanda hasn't talked yet, but you know, we're, I guess, kind of privileged here in terms of how we're able to work together as a community and how our voting runs smoothly and we don't have issues about difficulty voting and a lot of emotion or people frankly misbehaving. So, you know, and I wish the rest of the country was more like that. The one thing I would say, however this turns out, I think it is an important concept that every vote be counted. And people are trying to change the definition of voting to make it more restrictive. And that's something that I think we should fight against. So, you know, stay vigilant and I would say, stay involved as a citizen. And because, you know, democracy can be a fragile thing. And we've seen that. And in other parts of the world, and hopefully it won't be fragile here. But, you know, so keep a good thought and stay involved and vigilant, stay involved as a citizen. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, it was interesting. I saw a comment. I have family from Belgium, and someone posted, if Belgium can wait 592 days to create their government, then we can wait a few days to determine who our next president is and be patient about it. And I think, you know, it's something I've been saying for probably the last 2 or 3 months, is that it's going to take a couple of days because each state does their voting slightly differently. We need to be patient, and we need to, you know, make sure that we let, as you said, Rob, let the votes be counted, you know, within guidelines, right? I mean, even here in Massachusetts, you can have your mail-in ballot posted by yesterday, but they have to receive it by Friday, right? They're not going to wait, you know, 2 and 3 weeks to get those mail-in ballots. It has to, you know, they have to get it within a certain number of days. So I think you know, we have to just be patient and open. And at this point, you know, the voters did their job. Now it's up to our town clerks and, you know, legislators and elected officials at different levels to follow it through and make sure it's done properly. So I have two updates. We were notified that the Pond Street project, the contract is going to be awarded pretty soon. So sometime this fall, we'll start seeing some minor work done, but the bulk of it will actually start in spring of 2021. So you can, I believe we have those project documents online, so you can see what that is, the complete restructure of Route 126 from the Framingham line to the Holliston line with sidewalks, multi-use paths along the whole corridor. It's going to make it a corridor that will make it be much more walkable and accessible, and it'll be such a benefit for that side of Ashland and for all of Ashland. So that'll be nice. And then on Thursday, November 19th at 8 a.m. via Zoom, the Metro West Regional Collaborative will be having their legislative breakfast, quote unquote, because we won't be all together. But if you're interested, we do have confirmation from our Senator, Karen Spilka, as well as a couple of other senators that represent the Metro West region. So that's 9 cities and towns, as well as a number of state reps have already committed to being there. If you can't make it, but if you have some questions that you'd like asked, let me know. I know for myself, one of the biggest ones is going to be budget and how do we keep moving our state forward in these
Yolanda,
trying
what was the
times.
date and time on that? And
It is Thursday, November 19th, and it starts at 8 a.m. If you need a link, or you can go to the MAPC website, or hopefully you're all on the distribution list from the Regional Collaborative, and you should have gotten an email to link and register. If not, let me know and I can help you
Sure.
get that. And then just, you know, one last time, a big thank you to Tara and Cindy and all the poll workers, and of course, Michael and all the staff at Town Hall. And as we know, many of the Town Hall staff were some of the poll workers. So it was great to see. Thanks to the students who stepped up to help out, and of course to the school administration for having school closed so that we could use the high school and not be concerned about impacting the students and their day. So we are fortunate to live in a community like Ashland, who is open and understanding and caring. And I just feel fortunate to be sitting here as a member of the select board during these difficult times. So thank you all. If there is nothing else, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I just have one quick request
Sure.
that on our warrant articles that are being sponsored by the select board, it says select board and not BOS. Because I know that'll come to me from some people on other committees.
So it should be SB.
SB.
Okay.
not BS, SB.
Not BS.
Not BOS. You forgot the O.
Well, with that, then I
Good
will-
point, Joe.
I
What
will-
was that, Steve?
I said, ending with that, I will make a motion to adjourn at this point, but
Second.
also to thank our first responders, you know, our public safety, our nurses, and all the good folks that are out there on the front line. So
Yes.
that I enter a motion to adjourn.
If I can get a second.
Second.
Kinsman,
Aye.
Mignani,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Shearer,
Aye.
and Greaves, aye. Thank you all so much. Keep paying attention for everything that's going on. Our next select board meeting will be Wednesday, November 18th. We will see you all then, if not before. Stay safe. If you can, stay home. And if you do need to go out, wear a mask.
Very good.
Thanks, everybody. Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you all.
Bye.